Member for Riverview.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance talks about protecting the revenue stream, yet sits idly by as the independent gas retailers go out of business because of an unlevel playing field. But in the budget documents, the multi-year plans, we see revenue has declined by over $500 million in the next 4 years, from $9.189 billion this fiscal year to $9.729 billion in 2021. So will the minister give us a breakdown of where this additional revenue is coming from? I mean, half a billion dollars is a hefty increase, Mr. Speaker, and the minister is a self-confessed budget nerd, so the minister must have a very fairly accurate analysis of how this increase will occur. Please give us the sources and amounts of where this increase in revenue will come from.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it might be a nice segue to pick up from where my colleague just picked up on how successfully we were able to find revenues and inefficiencies both with our strategic program review, where last year we laid out a budget which was a base, a foundation upon which to build for this budget, where we can very successfully meet our targets, meet our fiscal plan that was laid out for multi-year, and in fact even exceed our targets. We've cut the deficit in half, and Mr. Speaker, we announced increases in revenue with a small HST increase last year, and this year we are seeing still increases in household spending, we're seeing increases in wages, we're seeing increases in consumption, and Mr. Speaker, we see economic growth, and our revenues are, we're always looking for opportunities, but Mr. Speaker, we value business.
Member for Riverview.
Well, Mr. Speaker, a lot of people would debate the small increase in HST, $300 million out of the pockets of taxpayers. That's a lot of money. In fact, some people would say that increasing the HST was the lazy way out. Oh, that was the finance minister. Anyways, on page 172 of the main estimates, overall tax revenue is expected to increase by $200 million over the next 4 years each year. Bearing in mind we have a shrinking population, already the highest tax jurisdiction in North America. So can the minister advise us how her government intends to make an increase of an additional $200 million per year of tax revenue over the next 4 years? Is this tax increase going to come from a carbon tax? Is it going to come from a sugar tax? Maybe it's going to come from Joe Trudeau. Tell us.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure again to stand up and proudly speak to our team and our team's work on this excellent budget, in fact, incredible budget that we just put forward. And Mr. Speaker, it might be a good time to remind the opposition as well that while we have $300 million projected from HST, $100 million of this went back into the hands of low and middle income New Brunswickers. And New Brunswickers are getting checks quarterly through HST credits based on income. And Mr. Speaker, we take care of New Brunswick families, and we continue to always think of this as we make decisions. We always want to take a balanced approach. And I want also to address the repetitive HST. Next.
Member for Riverview.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the minister may be proud of the job that her team has done, but John Robinson of the National Post says New Brunswick gets ready to make the same old mistakes all over again. Mr. Speaker, they haven't learned anything in the time in office. They still are tax and spend Liberal government. But the minister has made projections of revenue and deficits through 2021, but does the minister have a revised net debt figure to share? Very quiet on this during the speeches, but the Liberal election platform indicated the net debt would grow by $1.695 billion through to 2021. But the minister should know the net debt has already grown by $2.4 billion, and there's almost 4 years before we get to 2021. So what is the new revised net debt growth through 2021?
The Honourable the Premier.
Speaker, I'd like to get up and address some of the things the leader opposite has touched upon. He wants to talk about taxes, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about when he was a minister, when the leader of the opposition was the Minister of Finance, tax increases that they thrusted on the people in New Brunswick. Personal income tax went up, corporate income tax went up, tobacco tax went up, liquor tax went up, gas tax went up, user fees went up, Mr. Speaker, all of which asked New Brunswickers to pay hundreds of millions of dollars more. Mr. Speaker, what is interesting is that now that we are having a balanced approach to get our books to balance by 2020, all the while investing in things that will help us continue to grow the economy, invest record amounts in education, and invest in things that will help healthcare, and we're advancing things to move on those things, they're opposing them. So, Mr. Speaker, they raised all those taxes, but yet they won't let us, they won't support a $100 million tax HST rebate to the people of New Brunswick, taxing the 1% richest, Mr. Speaker, the CPP enhancement, minimum wage, and free tuition for those that need it, Mr. Speaker.
Time, Premier.